Hello and welcome. My name is John Dickinson. I recently created this look inspired by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse using After Effects and Boris Effects Continuum. And in this tutorial series, I'm going to walk you through the tools, techniques, and discuss the creative process to bring this look together. In this section, we're going to dive into Title Studio and take a step-by-step look at how the base title animation was created. So let's get started. Okay, so for the base of this look, I've created some 3D text using Title Studio. And as you can see, the text flies in and it starts fairly dark and then different letters kind of switch on and we end up with this bright illuminated version of the text. And what I wanted to do here, or the kind of effect that I wanted, was that the text would be almost sort of turned off and different sort of lights would be switching on. First of all, we'd have this sort of edge light or side of the text being illuminated, and that would be shortly followed by the front of the text being illuminated. So I wanted it kind of to look like lights were being turned on, and rather than just going from dark text to bright text, I just wanted to have this sort of intermediate kind of, it's almost like a neon around it, although it doesn't look like neon tubing, but it's almost like the light is turning on in two parts. So it's flickering on partly and then it's turning on completely. And I think just doing that rather than having it go from dark to bright just adds a little more interest to this. So they turn on as it's coming in, and then there's a slow push into the text, and then the text zooms out and you can see they switch off. And by the time we get back to where we started, all of those light letters have turned off. And all the while, the letters are jiggling as well. So all of the text animation was done inside Title Studio, and the zoom in and zoom out, was done using the After Effects camera. So let's go ahead now and use Title Studio and the After Effects camera to set this up. So I'm going to make a new composition. Just going to be 1920 by 1080 and 5 seconds duration. And add a new solid. Just going to name this TS. Click OK. And apply Title Studio. So I'll just search for that in my effects and presets. So BCC Title Studio. Now, of course, I'll endeavor to make this look as close as I can to the one we just looked at, but it might be slightly different. Let's see. So coming over to the Effect Control panel, clicking on Launch UI, and that will launch the Title Studio interface. So the first thing I want to do is type in the new text and choose the new font. So I just click on the word Boris Effects here, double click on the text, and I've already got the font selected. I'm using this font Bovine MVB. And this is one of the Adobe fonts. So if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, you'll be able to access that font. So let me just type in, with capital letters, Continuum. Obviously, you can type in whatever you want. Just going to hit enter there and just move that up and type in into the. Select all and center this. Okay, just double click the top one and just going to click and drag just to scale this down. That way Continuum looks a little more important. Okay, now I actually selected all, Control Command A, and just increase the leading. Dragging to the right there, that's pretty good. I want to leave a little bit more space between these because when they're extruded, they'll look even closer together. So something like that. Just looking over here in the composite view, make sure that looks right. So that's pretty much all I need to do in this panel. I'm just going to give myself a bit more space here. And the next thing I want to do is convert this 2D scene into a 3D scene. So I'm going to right click down here where it says Scene 2D Composite, Unshared, and I'm going to switch to 3D Render, just like that. And now I can start working in 3D. So I want to look at the extrusion for this. And I might just put this into dual horizontal view and just use my mouse wheel to roll in there. That way it's a little easier to see the extrusion. And come up to Controls, click on the Extrusion tab. Now obviously I've done this earlier, so I've just given myself some notes. So I'll try and follow those as closely as I can. So the extrusion I used was 15. So it's fairly big extrusion. And I used a convex bevel type, like that. I like the convex bevel type. It's just a little softer, a little more rounded. And just picks up the highlights nicely. Bevel amount I left at 0.2. And the bevel depth I changed to 1. So it's a little bit bigger, and you can see it's picking up that specular on the bevel really nicely. And what I'm also going to do with this one, because this is going to be the inside text, the dark text, I'm going to contract the edges. Watch what happens when I change this to 2. That just shrinks it all down a little bit. We're going to change this setting for the other text version so that they can sit on the outside and this can sit on the inside. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a material. I'll come over to my material styles. I'm going to choose a blue, but just something close to what I need. Something like this one here. What's that one? Just scroll down a little bit more. Blue 17. So just double click. Okay, now if I twirl open the text, and you can see I have a front material and color. I'll come up to the controls. Now this is only giving me one surface, the front, and it's applying it to all of the text. I want 3 separate surfaces. So I need to select the top layer or top level and click on material and change apply material from 1 to 3. Okay, so now you can see I've got front, extrusion, and bevel, and these all have the same color on them, so I need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to look at the front first. This is going to be fairly dark. And I'm going to click on the diffuse. And let's see, I want a color that's a little closer to the one I used on the other version. So I might just make that a little more cyan. Something like that. It's not going to be identical. And I want to bring this fairly dark. That's good. That's nice and dark. And the highlight will be slightly lighter. So I'll just sample that. Click. And just bring that up a little bit. Like that. Okay. It's a slightly brighter highlight. So that's good. Now I'll come down to the extrusion, which is the sides. And something pretty similar for this as well. So I might just come back to color and just click on this one here and just add this to my custom colors. Okay. Click on color again. Add this and just bring this down. And also sample this one. Just bring this up slightly. It doesn't have to be identical, just something similar. Okay. That looks pretty good. Just come down to bevel now. And the bevel will be slightly lighter. I think I'm pretty much on the money as to what I have. I might just click on the diffuse. Just choose this one and just bring it up a bit just to make sure it's the same hue. Yeah, a little bit brighter like that. Okay, so what I'll do is just come back to single view and just zoom in. And I'm already on high quality. So what we're doing here, it's fairly dark, but the bevels are just brighter so they stand out a little bit more. They might be a little too bright. A little bit of tweaking always has to be done. Maybe something like that. So remember, I want this to look like this is kind of, the lights are kind of turned off. But it is nice to be able to sort of see the little ping off the bevels on this, this version of the text. All right, Next, I want to add some lighting. So I will have to come back up to my dual horizontal. Now, I am still in Title Studio, of course, but I am going to save this. I'm just going to name this ITC. I'm going to put it on my desktop, just in case anything happens. That way I can come back to where I was. And click Save. Now, currently we have the standard lighting. So let's click on the top level. And I'm just going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom out. Come up to the Lights tab. And you can see I just have a light to the top left of the text. So that's light 1 by default. You can see there's a little checkbox. So I'm going to just click and drag it in the scene. Now I couldn't quite grab it, so I'm just going to hit the Move tool here and make sure I can get that. There we go. Just move that in front, just like that. And I also want to illuminate the text from the back. So I'm going to turn on light 2. And light 2 is also in the front. So I'm going to click on that one. And this is where this view comes in handy. And I also like to use the keyboard shortcut Control Spacebar so I can pan around the text. A little bit easier to see what's going on. And then grab that light on the Z-axis and just push that back behind the text. You can see how that's illuminating the extrusion, the sides of the text. It's no longer affecting the front. So that looks pretty good. That's all I want to do for the lighting. I may need to adjust that a little bit more later. Next, what I want to do is add the jitter to the text. So I'll just twirl up my materials just to keep this tidy. And click on Into the Continuum. This is not the top level, but the level below. And you can see up here, I've got some options for the text, and one of them is jitter. So this is kind of like a wiggle in After Effects, if you're used to wiggle. Now I want these letters to wiggle, but not too much. So I'm going to just choose a value of 25. And I don't want them to wiggle position, I want them to wiggle scale. So for the version I did, I used a value of 20 on the X and 20 on the Y. And you can see as I drag the current time indicator, those letters are sort of randomly scaling up and down, which is nice. Just gives the text some life. And I thought, since I was being inspired by Into the Spider-Verse, I thought the text needed to have some kind of life of its own. Gives it some more energy. Okay, so now we're ready to duplicate this. So maybe I'll just rename this. I'll just name this 1. Could get very easy to make mistakes if I don't rename them. I'm going to right click and choose Duplicate Track. And then for the top one, right click and rename and name this one 2. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off number 1 for a moment and just concentrate on number 2. So remember, number 2 had the brighter extrusions. So let's go and make some changes. But before I do that though, I want to just adjust the extrusion. Because if I don't, then this is going to be occupying exactly the same 3D space as number 1. I'm going to click on number 2, click on extrusion. Just zoom in a little bit. Control spacebar just to move around. Okay. So the extrusion for this one is also 15, so that doesn't change. It's also convex, but the bevel amount is higher. I've doubled this to 0.4. So we've got an even bigger bevel. And bevel depth for this one, I've set to 0. Like that. And the edge contract is 0. So this will puff it out again, like that. So now if I turn on the number 1 text, we can still see it in front. So what I have to do is move number 2 forward. So clicking on Position and Position Z, I'm just going to drag that it's a little bit touchy to try and zero in on that. So let's just change this to, let's try -3. All right, -6. Okay, it needs to be even more. What I might do actually, I'll just undo that. I'm going to bring number 1 back. Make that, let's say 9. It's got to come right back in. So 15. That's still just peaking. So let's make that 18. Okay, so now if I turn on and off 2, it's covering that properly. Just like that. Okay, so now I can come in and adjust the materials for number 2. Just twirling it open. And let's adjust the extrusion first. So this is going to be a lot brighter. I'm going to grab this and bring this up. And actually make it a little bit more cyan. Maybe something like that. Add that one. Okay, you can see that on the extrusion now. And also going to just sample that for the highlight. Like that. That's nice and bright. And the bevel is going to be pretty much the same. So twirling open the bevel. And just choosing that. You can see it's quite bright. And that looks good. Turn that on and off again just to see how it looks. Okay, looking good. So next I want to type these letters on. So once again, just twirling up my materials to keep this tidy. And if I click on the second level here, you can see next to jitter I have type on. So this I have to keyframe. So at 0 seconds, I want this to be 0, so we don't have any type on. So the text will disappear. I'm going to add a linear keyframe. Then I'm going to move to about 1 second. Doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to change this to 100. So now we'll see all of those letters. And I'm going to change the order from forward to random. Now if I move the current time indicator, you can see those letters are randomly typing on and covering the first set of letters. And because we duplicated number 1, the jitter is identical. It'd be no good if it was a different random seed for the jitter because you'd get all this intersection, but that's not the case. Okay, so you can see what we're doing here. Now I'm going to just jump forward to about 4 seconds. And I'm going to just set another keyframe at 100. And then just come to the end. Probably just slightly before the end here. And maybe around 420. This is going to type off a little faster and change the text type on to 0. Because remember, as the text is zooming out, the text is typing off again and revealing the original base text. Okay, looking good. I'm just going to apply this and save. So this is looking pretty good. We just drag the time indicator and just see how the brighter text is looking. It looks a little bit bright. Might just adjust that. So I'm going to come back into Title Studio. I like to every so often just come back into After Effects and save the project. So I've saved it in Title Studio and in After Effects, just in case. So I'm just going to come back down to number 2, to the extrusion material and the color. And I think it's okay. I might just adjust the bevel slightly. Maybe just make this a little lighter. Okay, and I will be adjusting the lighting a little bit as well when I add the seamless cyc in. All right, so now what I want to do is duplicate this again. Just twirling up number 2, keep things organized, right click and choose duplicate track. And of course rename this one as 3. Once again I'm going to save. Just save over the one I created before. And I'll just turn off number 1 for now, and number 2. And now I need to just adjust the materials for number 3. And of course, actually, first of all, doing the extrusion, which is what I forgot with number 2. Just checking to see what I have here. Got to select the top level, click on extrusion. Okay, so for this, I'm choosing a bevel amount of 0.3. Remember, I'm just using the notes that I created when I first created this look. There's no real reason for choosing these particular values specifically. It's just what I use as I was designing it. You might find something else a little more appealing. And the bevel depth to be 0.8. So that really pushes that forward now. Okay, so now I can come down to the front material. And this is going to be an important one because this front one has to be quite bright. Like that. And that's pretty much all I have to do for that. And because I duplicated number 2, it has both the jitter and the type on. But number 2 and number 3 are going to type on at exactly the same time. So we need to offset them. So we want number 2 to type on first, but not from the very beginning. So I'm just going to drag that about 3 frames, maybe to about there, and then drag number 3 about 3 more frames. So if we turn number 1 and 2 back on, we start with just the darker text. And remember, this is going to be zooming in. And as it's zooming in, we start to reveal the brighter sides, or the brighter side version. And then they get filled up with the fully illuminated version. Now, as far as typing off again, let's just look at the keyframes here. This has got to be offset as well, but the top layer, number 3, has to come first because that's the outermost layer. So what I'll do now is I've given myself a little bit of space here, so I'll just select number 2 and keyframe and the keyframe before that and just drag that a little bit later. So now the top level will type off, revealing layer 2, which will also type off, revealing layer 1. Which is really nice. So once again, I'm going to click apply. That's looking good. Just going to save this, come back into Title Studio. And next I want to add the seamless cyc. So just twirl these up. And to add that, I'm going to click up here on these color bars. This is the Add New Media option. Come down to 3D Model File. I'm going to add one of the Cinema 4D model files that ships with Title Studio. Now, you'll find that in the Custom 3D Models folder, inside Presets, inside the Continuum AE folder. On Windows, that's in the Program Data folder. And the one we want to choose is Cyc 1. Now, a cyc is often used to create a background that's seamless, obviously in the real world in photo shoots, but also in 3D. If we just zoom out a little bit, you can see it's in the scene. It's positioned pretty well, but it's obviously way too small. So I need to make some adjustments. I'm going to just select it and move it down to the bottom. Also rename it. Twirl that open, and you can see it says Cyc 1 C4D. We'll add some color in a moment. Just going to select the top level and adjust the scale of this. Now, my settings were for scale X. I had 568, and for scale Y, 538, and for scale Z, I had 682. Now, those are just arbitrary figures, just to make sure that the seamless cyc fills the frame. You can see it's pretty large now, but remember I'm doing a camera zoom on this, so it needed to be large enough to fill the frame so you don't see the edges. So that looks good. Now I need to change the color. So if we choose Cyc 1 color, it says disable shader. I'm just going to come over to one of these. Just double click. That adds the color to it. Notice how everything goes black as well. What I need to do is click on the color, come up to the controls, and turn on two-sided lighting, like that. And of course, we don't want bright yellow, although it doesn't look too bad. I want something more like that, which is the same as the text, but a lot darker. So this is going to come right down. Important to get the highlight as a similar tone, and this will pretty much be the same, maybe slightly lighter. Okay, that's looking good, but I do have to move the light, this backlight in particular. I don't want this backlight illuminating the seamless cyc, so I need to select it. I do want it to continue to illuminate the text, but not the cyc, so I need to select it and just move it behind the cyc. I'm not sure from that view exactly how far I have to move it, so maybe Control Spacebar, just use my mouse wheel, just make sure it's in the right position. Once again, select the scene. This is where it's important to move around your objects. Okay, that's probably pretty good. I want to make sure it's not in front. See, if I move it in front, it's going to make that way too bright. If I move it behind, it's still illuminating the text, but it's not illuminating the cyc. So let's come back to a single view. And I think that's just about right. Maybe let's just select light 1. Light 1's in a good position. I think light 2 is a little low. So I'll select light 2, just drag on the yellow box here, and I can move it on the X and Y at the same time. And notice when I drag it around, you can see the light changing the text. It's important to move the light and see how it affects your text, or it affects your object. That's pretty much what I want. I'm just going to come back down to the cyc. Just have a look at the highlight amount and specular strength, which I think are pretty much okay. You can see if I bring the specular too high, it makes that specular too big and soft. We increase the highlight amount. Probably increase that just a little bit because that makes that a little bit more of a hotspot, which is good. And that's pretty much all I have to do for the setup for the text and the background. So I'm going to click Apply. Okay, so overall that's looking pretty good. We may want to come back and make some minor adjustments to the cyc, but first of all, let's set up the camera. And the reason I want to use the After Effects camera and not the Title Studio camera is because in this look, I'm using other After Effects 3D layers, and I want them to be affected by the After Effects camera as well. So I'll just save this and create a new camera. And the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift Control or Command Alt or Option C. 50mm camera. I'm going to click OK. And importantly, select the Title Studio layer. I'm going to switch off Use Comp Lights. So I'm not using any After Effects lights, but I will check Use Comp Camera. And you see it just popped forward slightly, but didn't change much. So now it's time to animate the camera. So I want the camera to zoom out, and then I want the camera to zoom in again. So I'll just hit 1 on the keypad. That'll select layer 1, which is the camera. Hit P to reveal position. And the initial move is going to be over 1 second. So I'll come back to home by hitting the home key. And of course, the text goes dark because it hasn't typed on yet. The other text hasn't typed on yet. I'm going to click the position stopwatch to create a keyframe and change the Z value. For this, I want to choose 2140. That was a good value that I used for mine. And I did adjust the Y value slightly. I might just do that in a moment. So now I'm going to come to around 1 second, and I'm going to change this to minus 2350, which is not quite enough. I did say that it might be slightly different to what I did before. Maybe because I made the text slightly larger than I did on the previous version. I want it to be about that big. And let's just see. I don't want this fully out of the frame, so I'm just dragging the Z value. Okay, so it is slightly different. Okay, I want that. I want it to be about there. But I also, with that keyframe selected, just want to adjust the Y value just to center the text a little bit, like that. If I was to do a full zoom from an empty frame, then I could do it this way. I just find a gap and do it that way. Maybe something like that would be good. Now that's going to zoom out. And it's going to be in the right position, just there. Maybe a little bit more, because I need to allow a little bit of room for this to continue to scale or zoom in throughout the length of the animation. And notice at the top of the frame, if I go too far, we start seeing the top of the seamless cyc. So I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. A little bit of backwards and forwards with this kind of thing, just to get it lined up. Okay, so now I can come to around 4 seconds. And like I said, you can choose different timings for your animation if you like. This is approximately what I did. Set another keyframe, but I want this one to have zoomed in slightly because I want the text to feel like it's moving throughout the animation rather than just sitting stationary. Although it is actually jittering, of course, but it's nice when you get that little push in on it. So now it hits that keyframe. And then by the time it reaches around 4 seconds, it's zoomed in slightly and maybe even a little bit more. Something like that. Then, of course, we do a quick zoom out, and that finishes at the end of the animation. To do that, just drag the Z value. And I'm probably going to have to adjust the Y slightly. And of course, I could have just copied and pasted the first keyframe. Doesn't have to go right through the camera. Okay, so now I need to adjust the value graph. Obviously, this is linear at the moment. So I want to grab this second handle and just bring it down and pull it back this way. And just bring that like that. It's probably a little too extreme. Let's just make this lower quality. And also, I'll just make this half resolution. Maybe even a quarter. Just preview this section. So it's nice and fast at the beginning, and then we get this nice ease in at the end. And of course, not all of the text is revealed by the end of the camera move. We want to be able to see some of this text reveal. And if it all happens too soon, then we lose a lot of the impact. That's probably enough. Just bring that back a little bit and just preview. Just like that. So that number 2 text layer is not super obvious, but it just adds a little bit of extra detail. And you can see how the seamless cyc is also reacting to the camera, which is nice as well. So overall, that looks pretty good and very similar to what I had. I'm just zooming down here though, just to make sure that this little guy here lines up with this. Close enough. So we don't get a bump there. And I want this to be opposite at the end, so it eases out. And bring up the end one. So it eases out, then picks up speed. If I just select that, and I press Shift-Control-K or Shift-Command-K, I'm just going to check the incoming and outgoing velocities. I can actually match those. That way the incoming and outgoing velocity are the same. You can see that will actually match them. And I can probably do the same here. So Shift-Control-K, Shift-Command-K, and just match or make those continuous. That's a little bit better than just dragging those handles. So now that will pick up speed at the end. We're getting a little push in throughout the main body of the animation. And then we get a nice seamless ease into that final zoom in as the text is typing off again. And the same thing here. I didn't want the text to type off too late, otherwise we don't get to see much of it. And remember, we timed it so that the layer 3 type off finished just before the end of the animation. So that's just before the end of the camera move. And you can see it there. I think it's the U there, just there, the U and the I. So they're gone, and then a few frames later, the text is gone. That's nice. The jitter setting in Title Studio is great because it's super simple. I just turn it on, add the amount, and I get that really nice wiggle without having to do any kind of keyframing. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. The next step will be to separate the text from the background, because this text gets a lot of different treatments in this look, and it needs to be treated separately from the background. So that's going to mean duplicating the Title Studio layer and then just turning the text off in one and turning the seamless cyc off in the other. But first of all, I want to make just a couple of adjustments to the seamless cyc. So just going back into Title Studio. I just had a look at my original settings. I just want to make it a little bit darker and just change the Y position slightly. I'm going to select the cyc and just click on the color. And I'm just going to type in a few colors here. I know I wasn't going to be too precise, but I know that these are going to bring it into line with what I had before. 12, 22, and 22 for the ambient. 20, 31, and 44 for the diffuse. And you can see it's making it more blue. And the highlight is 26, 40, and 57. Okay, so that's made it definitely more blue and definitely darker. Now what I want to do next is just change the height of the cyc. So I need to click on the top level and just want to give it a little more definition. Just at the back here, it's a little bit faint here. So if I come up to position Y, I'm going to change that to about 75. You can see by moving that up, the light's affecting it in a different way. And we're getting this nice shadow at the back here. So we get this highlight on the back wall and this highlight on the floor. And I really wanted to make the floor more obvious because we're going to have some sparks bouncing off it in another step. So that's much better. So I'm going to click Apply. You can see a big difference. So now I'm ready to duplicate this layer. So I'll press Ctrl or Command D. For the top one, once again, I'll launch the UI. And this is going to be my text. So I'll just simply turn off the cyc, keeping it in here just in case. And for the bottom one, we'll do the reverse, turning off the text. Okay, so now the cyc is separate from the text. But I do need to place the cyc into a separate composition. Otherwise, anything I do to treat this comp will change the cyc as well. And that's going to present one challenge, and that's the camera, because the camera is affecting both these layers. So I need to duplicate the camera. And I'm not simply going to duplicate it. I'm going to press Ctrl Alt or Command Option C to copy, and that will copy with property links. This option here. So now if I pre-compose the cyc by pressing Shift Control or Shift Command C, making sure that it's moving all attributes, I'll name this main because this is going to be the main composition, and click OK. So now the cyc is inside the main one. It's not being affected by the camera. So we need to paste the camera into here, the one we just copied. So I'll paste, and now it looks correct. And if I press EE to reveal expressions, you can see that all of the parameters of the camera are linked to the camera in the other composition. Let's just see them here. You can see comp 1, layer camera 1. So what that means is that any changes I make to this camera will automatically update with this camera. And that's really good if you have 2 cameras, but what if you have like 10 cameras in your project? This way you can link it up to the original camera and only have to change one camera and it'll ripple through your entire project. So copying with property links, really valuable, and not just for cameras. So now I can make adjustments to the Title Studio layer and add different effects and things and not affect the background. So this is basically ready to move on to the next stage. In the next tutorial, we'll look at enhancing the 3D-ness of the scene by adding some reflections for the text, adding some glows, and also adding some sparks using particle illusion, and having those appear to bounce off the seamless cyc. So thanks for watching, and be sure to visit borisfx.com to take a free trial of Continuum and to see more videos about all of the Boris FX products.